everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is our AI part 3 of our webinar, of our 3-part AI webinar series. And this is about experiencing the efficiency at its finest and unlocking the technical capabilities of Copilot. So we're going to take a deep dive into the security for one, and then a little bit about the back end of how Copilot runs. If I have not met you already, my name is Tara Kruger, and I work at C&W Technologies. We are a local IT company. We've been around in the business for 40 plus years. This is our 40th year, and we're very excited. So a little bit about our rollout. I'm going to talk a little bit about C&W Technologies, but be very brief because I don't want to take too much time. I want to jump right into our information. And then I'm going to hand it over to Andrew, and Andrew is going to cover all of the interesting aspects of Copilot. So a few housekeeping things. As all of our sessions, this session is being recorded. I will be sending out the recording for this session later in the day. It does take a little bit of time. Also, you may have noticed that your microphones and cameras have been disabled. However, I do encourage for everyone to give their questions in the chat, and I will bring them up accordingly. We could not run these sessions or these series without your feedback, so we strongly encourage everyone to complete a post-event survey, which will be sent out post this session. It does take a little bit of time as well, but keep an eye out via email for that survey. And without further ado, let's get started. So a little bit about C&W Technologies. I did mention we've been in the IT sector for 40 plus years, which is great. We are a team of roughly 15 individuals. Our owner and CEO and founder, Eric Keene, he could not be on the call with us today, but he is still very involved in the company and day in and day out doing all the technical things. So, but like I said, we have about 15 people on our team. We are a local IT company based in Stuart, Florida. So we do all things managed IT, security, cloud support, and now, of course, AI, you name it, we do it. And so that's a little bit about us. But like I said, I don't want to take too much time, so it was very brief. And I really want to jump into this last part of our AI series. It's going to be very exciting. So without further ado, I do not have any sound, any suggestions. Oh, Jim, are you not able to hear us? I will try looking into that and see what's going on there.
I would make a suggestion if Jim hasn't already tried this to leave the meeting, so disconnect and then rejoin and see if that resolves the issue. Sometimes it's as simple as that, but try that first and see what happens.
Okay, I will send him that message. Hopefully we can get that resolved. But anyways, let's jump right into this session, and I'm going to hand it over to Andrew to talk a little bit about Copilot.
Thanks very much, Tara. I appreciate it. I'm glad to have an opportunity to talk about Microsoft 365 Copilot once again. The flavor is going to lean decidedly towards what you see here, security of your data and information. And this is hopefully something that's going to resonate with you, especially if you're not in IT or a technical person. My conversations and interactions have always been, and thus far continue to be, from the user enablement perspective, right? Think of it this way. If you've ever purchased a car, right? You go to the showroom and you may be a person When you go when you go to purchase a car, you ask about horsepower and drivetrain and a lot of the things that make the car work. And then, of course, you take some interest in, if the seats are comfortable, that type of thing. Or you might be a person who is only about the aesthetics. Are the seats comfortable? Does it look good? Do I look good in the car? That type of thing. And so when it comes to the security piece, this is an aspect that everyone needs to care about. And I'm going to take a leap here and assume that you care about this because one of the questions that every business needs to address is which of the AI tools are we going to trust with our business information? The information that's sensitive, the information that's private and confidential, our identities. There are no shortage of AI tools out there. And so is it going to be a matter of, well, which one works better in terms of providing me with results for Word or an Outlook or an Excel, that type of thing? All relevant, and you do need to determine which one that is. But at the end of the day, is the AI tool that you've selected trustworthy? Can you trust it with your data and information? Because you have security around your business info. You want to make sure that it remains secure when you introduce AI to your environment. And so I'm hoping that what I'll be able to share with you in the next few minutes is going to resonate and help you to come to a definitive conclusion. Well, I've just got started, and I hope I'm not going to be losing my voice already, but we're going to push forward. If you feel a need to ask me to repeat anything or to clarify anything, please do so. Um, and as Tara has already alluded to, you can type your question into the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on that. And if I don't, then Tara's there to make sure that I'm aware of a question to be answered. So I'm going to start by setting a foundation, making sure everyone is on the same page in terms of your understanding and, dare I say, appreciation for Microsoft 365 Copilot. And then I will get into the piece about the importance of the security of your data, information, and identities. And then we'll move along from there. So first of all, these 6 bullet points help to encapsulate what we're talking about here. Hmm. All right, so of these 6, let's start with number 1. It's the UI for AI, the user uh, interface for artificial intelligence. Copilot is Microsoft's AI companion for Microsoft 365. It's available as an add-on that brings a consistent, easy-to-use chat experience across web, desktop, and mobile devices. And when it comes to mobile devices, hopefully you're aware, and if not, I'm now going to make sure that you're aware, you can actually download an instance of Copilot to your cell phone or to your other mobile device. So just go to your favorite e-store, whether it's Google Play Store or the iStore. Is there such thing as iStore? Yeah. I don't have an iDevice, so that's why I'm not sure. But wherever you get your favorite apps, go there and do a search for Microsoft Copilot, and you can download a free instance of Copilot and start working with it and getting familiar with it. And so again, Copilot available across all your devices. Point number 2, it helps you work smarter by integrating AI into the tools you already use every day, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and a number of others, OneDrive, and the list goes on. It all depends on which Microsoft 365 license you actually have. So if you have a business standard or business premium, which is actually the hero SKU for small and medium-sized businesses, or if you have an E3 or an E5, any of those support Microsoft 365 Copilot. And so you can get started using Copilot. This, by the way, Microsoft 365 Copilot is an add-on. So having that by itself isn't going to do anything for you. And quite frankly, you can't even order it unless you have a Microsoft 365 or an Office 365 subscription to start. Because this license, Microsoft 365 Copilot, being an add-on needs to be added to one of those base licenses because it is, at its most fundamental level, AI. It's artificial intelligence. You need to add it to something so you can actually leverage and use and benefit or get benefits from AI. It allows you to open Outlook and start working with AI in Outlook while you're in Outlook. It allows you to open up the other apps that I just touched on, like Excel, and work with AI while you're in the Excel app, etc. As opposed to working with one of the other third-party AI tools like a ChatGPT or Gemini, etc. You can get great responses out there because, again, we're talking about AI. AI is universal regardless of who you decide to get it from when we're talking about AI tools anyway. For business use, it's just a matter of whose wrapping paper you want to have around it, whether Microsoft or others. But in using those other tools, you'll get results, but then it still requires you to now copy and paste those results into your Word document or your Excel document or your other Microsoft applications. This license, Microsoft 365 Copilot, allows you to work with AI in those applications, reducing or if not even eliminating the need to be copying and pasting. So that's the good thing. So those are the first three bullet points. Point number four, Microsoft 365 Copilot inherits all of your security, privacy, identity, and compliance policies. Your data will remain secure. We're definitely going to come back to that because that's the cornerstone of our meeting today. Point number five, let's talk about purchasing options. It's an annual subscription, but you get to decide if you want to be billed annually or monthly. So again, it's an annual subscription. If you want to be billed annually, that means each year when it comes time for renewal, you pay for the following year. On the other hand, if you would appreciate greater flexibility, you can spread the payments over the course of 12 months. So you can be billed month to month to month to month. But be aware of this, that if you take the month to month to month option over the course of an annual subscription, Microsoft has added a 5% premium. And so the month to month billing is available at a 5% premium compared to the annual billing. Hopefully I didn't muddy those waters too much. So it is actually less expensive for you if you are able to move forward with the annual subscription billed annually, because that's going to cost less than the annual subscription billed monthly. And then point number six, Microsoft provides tools to help you accelerate adoption and measure AI impact and business value. There's something called the Copilot dashboard, which is built into this license. Um, and you would find benefit from this because it's going to help companies like yourself quantify the benefits of this license. So as for instance, you'll be able to view who's using Copilot a lot, who's not using it enough, things like that, who's using it mostly in Word or in the other applications, or actually, let me rephrase that. You can see where Copilot is being used the most. If it is being used mostly in Outlook, or if it's being used mostly in PowerPoint, things of that nature, that will allow you then to determine, do we need to get more training for users so that they start using it more in these apps over here? Maybe there's an application where it's not being used at all. Things like that. So it allows you to, in essence, monitor your investment so you can maximize the return on your investment, which is Microsoft 365 Copilot. It's an AI-powered digital assistant. All right. If you have the subscription, you have a clue as to what it can do. But I'm not going to assume that everyone in our meeting today has a subscription yet. Maybe you're leaning towards it. Hopefully you are. Maybe it's imminent that you're going to get a license or 10 for users in your organization. But let me just give you a few examples so you can see what Copilot looks like in action. This first example is Excel. Excel is widely used, whether it is in an actual accounting role or a finance role. Maybe you are in IT, but you use Excel to capture and manage certain types of data, etc. Let me just show you these couple of examples.
Copilot in Excel makes anyone a data analyst. Say you want to understand annual revenue trends, how each product is selling, which categories are performing best, and what's driving sales. To do that, you need to bring together data on product sales, pricing, and customer feedback. First, you import your data sources. Now you have a workbook with all the raw data you need in one place, and you can use Copilot to shape and analyze the numbers. Let's start by figuring out which category of your business is driving the most revenue. You know how to calculate that, but this sheet has 3 years of sales data, with thousands of rows showing sales by product by month. So while it's a routine task, this much data can be unwieldy. You can ask Copilot to quickly calculate monthly revenue by product. It knows how to do that, and which data to reference across tabs. Copilot creates a plan for how it will run those numbers, executes that plan, showing its work as it goes, and prompts you to ask questions or iterate on the solution it reached. It looks great, so you're ready to add that column to your spreadsheet. Now a new ask has come in, and you need to understand how each product category is performing and ensure that you are selling at least 100K in product in each category per month. Let's start by comparing sales by category. You ask Copilot to create a simple bar chart so you can quickly see which product categories are selling the best. And with conditional formatting, it highlights the product lines that aren't meeting the $100,000 minimum threshold, so you know where to focus. Now that we know which products aren't selling well, let's dig a little deeper and see what we can learn from the customer feedback. Copilot in Excel can now reason over text, like this raw customer data. Copilot analyzes all the customer feedback from the past quarter and surfaces the top 3 concerns. It looks like charging speed might be an emerging issue. Let's ask Copilot to highlight customer reviews that mention charging speed. Now, with the help of Copilot, you've taken a complex, disparate data set and quickly analyzed it, giving you a full picture of your revenue trends that you can bring to the upcoming business review.
So this is the tool, specifically Copilot in Excel, that is going to help people who work in Excel all day to accomplish or get to end of job more quickly. That's what I wanted to be able to say. It's not going to be the obligation of the user, right? So if you've got a Microsoft 365 Copilot license and you're in accounting or a financial role, it doesn't obligate you to use this for every single action or activity. Identify what you would consider to be a repetitive task and leverage Copilot to take care of those repetitive tasks. It's important to look at AI as a helper, as an assistant, right? Copilot is an AI-powered digital assistant. Where can it fit within your role and responsibilities to help you get your job done even more effectively, right? So if you consider yourself to be an expert level user of Excel, fantastic. Perhaps this helps you to even further elevate what you're able to do. For example, have you been working with Python in Excel, right? Not everyone does, but there are those who are even more advanced and have found value from using Python in Excel.
We are combining Copilot in Excel with the power of Python, one of the world's most popular programming languages for working with data. You're working on your company's annual revenue forecast planning for the next fiscal year. Normally, you could spend hours running a manual analysis of the numbers. Now, Copilot can run Python in Excel, making your job a whole lot easier. In just a couple of clicks, Copilot does an advanced analysis, reasoning over 3 years of historical sales data. Like an analyst would, Copilot opens up a new workspace where you can experiment to get the insights you're looking for, all without altering your original data. It shows a preview of what it's reasoning over, creates a plan to analyze it in a way that's immediately useful, and executes it with Python, giving you a quick picture of your numbers. Now you're ready to iterate on Copilot's work. Let's ask it to forecast your annual revenue for the next 2 years. Copilot repeats the pattern, creating a plan for how it will tackle the task, running Python in Excel to execute its analysis, giving you a fast and detailed analysis, and prompting you to iterate and ask questions about its work. If you want to make any of the edits to the Python code itself, you can do so directly in the workbook. This is the power of bringing Python directly into the Excel grid. Let's take it a step further. You want to understand how best to meet your revenue goals, which customers have the highest potential upside. So you go back to your original customer data and ask Copilot to use advanced analysis to rank customers based on upsell opportunity. As Python in Excel gets to work, it jumps back to your analysis workspace. It prioritizes the most helpful metrics and provides a preview of the data it will use. It ranks them, and within moments, you have a prioritized table. You want to see a visualization of the customer ranking and understand the weighting methodology Copilot used. Copilot quickly creates a chart and gives you a detailed breakdown of how it arrived at the answer. Within minutes, you've worked with Copilot to create a full analysis of your data, all without writing a single line of code. And now you're ready to send the analysis to your sales team and collaborate on it together.
You know how you can send that analysis to the sales team, just to keep this view on the screen for another moment here, off to the right, which is the Copilot sidecar, down at the bottom lower right-hand corner. I would now at this point type in, write an email or draft an email to individual, to John, right? Draft an email to John with this info, and hit go. And Copilot in Excel, in that sidecar, will now write the email, or at least a draft of an email, which you would then copy and paste into Outlook. And you would attach this file or any other file or document. You address it to John or whoever the individual is that you're sharing it with, and hit send. And away it goes. Now, here's the relevance of this. Here's the application of this, whether you're in accounting, whether you're in any area of business working in Excel or any of the other apps. Here's what is applicable across all of them. Let's say this is all proprietary information relevant to your business. You may say to me, I can do this in one of the other third-party AI tools. Probably true. But my question is now what I posed off the top of our meeting here today. Which AI tool are you willing to trust with your confidential private business information? So if you can do this in another AI tool, fantastic. But what happens to that data that you've been working with in that AI tool, whether it's ChatGPT or the others? You are in a public environment at that point in time, a public environment that you have no control over. And what happens to your data that you've pasted out there or that's been generated for you is not under your control.
Andrew, if I might interrupt you
Yeah,
just for a
go
moment, I
ahead.
do have a question that popped in. Does Copilot integrate with other customer data platforms?
Yes,
Would you be able to highlight that?
yes, yes, it does. And so it would, I guess I'll go as far as to say it depends on which platform you're referring to. Out of the box, if IT doesn't do any customizations to the license and you start working with it, Microsoft 365 Copilot by default works with your Microsoft ecosystem, whatever files, documents, and information you have in your Microsoft environment. If you want it to extend to also incorporate data from the web, it will do that. If you want to extend it to incorporate data from other customer data platforms, it can, but it does require customization, and that requires that you involve your IT department.
And to also included in that question, I guess they're using Chamber Master as the platform that she is currently using.
So I'm not familiar with Chamber Master. However, this is a flexible tool, speaking of Copilot. And again, just going back to what I said a moment ago, you would want to, now if you're IT, fantastic. There are customizations that you can put in place to make that possible, because Copilot does integrate with non-Microsoft applications and tools. I hope that helps. But I will also make a note of this so I can take a look at it afterwards. Chamber Master. Okay. All right, and so that's an example of Excel. And this is what you can do within the safety and security of your Microsoft environment. You have policies in place, you have permissions in place, so that even within your own company, not everyone has access to everything, right? It depends on what their role and responsibilities are. The administrative assistant will have permission to see certain files and documents, which if you look at the owner or the CEO of your business, that individual has permissions in place that hopefully far exceed what an office administrator is allowed to see. And so it's still all within your protected Microsoft environment. If you're using other AI tools, you don't have control over that stuff. Use Copilot. You're bringing AI into your controlled environment. So now you get to decide what Copilot can have access to and have visibility to. Copilot, you can have access to this info over here, but not this info over here. You can do that with Microsoft 365 Copilot. If you're using the other AI tools, you are in essence relinquishing control over the security of your data and information. Let me show you one more example before we get into this more. Another example of Copilot, this time Copilot in Teams.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered, and it provides citations from the transcript so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool. But the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. You can see how it summarizes who said what points were made, and it's really capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions are unresolved. It's just amazing to see this happen in real time during a meeting.
Now here's a topic, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly. But here's a topic that you do need to be aware of, because we have Microsoft 365 Copilot. It has flexibility so that if you want it to work with data and information and other tools outside of Microsoft, or I'll just say as a catch-all phrase, non-Microsoft info, it will. Microsoft 365 Copilot, the license is flexible and customizable. Consider this, that Microsoft 365 Copilot works across all of your data and information. Let's say that's a pie, represented by a pie. So Microsoft 365 Copilot works across the entire pie, regardless of the flavor of the pie, right? Rhubarb, apple, doesn't matter, pick your favorite. It has access and reasons over all of that. But if you want it to actually be specific, and you want to fine tune it so that it's only reasoning or having access to a slice of the pie. If you want it to do that, if you want to customize it so it's only looking at a slice of the pie to generate answers and information, that's when you would create an agent. So a Copilot agent is in many ways a subset of the overall Microsoft 365 Copilot solution. Think of it in another way. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your expert across all of your Microsoft information. If you want to create an expert just for a segment of that information, you would create a Copilot agent. And so this is where, going back to an earlier question, will it integrate with other data platforms? Yes, Copilot license will, but then you can also have an agent created. So when people go into Copilot and they have a question specific to, in this case, the example was Chambermaster, you could create an agent whereby when a question is asked that is specific to that platform, the agent will receive the question, and then it will only look into data that's related to that application to provide an answer. Another example would be HR. HR might determine, well, this is great that Copilot is an expert over all of our company's Microsoft data, but if we want to create an expert that is, or we want to create an agent that's an expert HR tool, how do we do that? You would create an agent. Now, does IT have to create the agent in order for you to have it? Not exclusively. It could be IT and it could be you as a user, because once you get a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, it includes the tools and functionality that allow you as a user to create an agent. Now, subject to your organization's policies and regulations, things like that, it's up to the organization to determine if they want to allow users to be able to create agents. Maybe at first they say no, but as time goes on, they're going to want to switch that and allow users to be able to create agents, because you want people to maximize the usage of Copilot. So again, quick refresher and then we'll move on. Microsoft 365 Copilot is the license that includes the capabilities, or I should say includes the tools that allow you to create what you see here, agents. You want to create agents? Microsoft 365 Copilot allows you to do that. Microsoft 365 Copilot is the expert resource that you have to reason over and to search across all of your Microsoft info. If you want it to be, or if you want to create an expert just for specific info, right? An expert for HR, an expert for IT, an expert for sales, something that's fine-tuned in that manner, you would create an agent, which is now an expert over a specific segment of your data. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't necessarily need to go for that right out of the gate. Get familiar and comfortable with Microsoft 365 Copilot first once you get the subscription. But no, keep it very close to the front of your mind as opposed to somewhere in the back, that agents now allow you to fine-tune the usefulness of Microsoft 365 Copilot. And let me just share this with you, and then we'll finally get to the security aspect of things. Let me just stop sharing this here. And just want you to watch this quickly, just to provide a little bit better context for what I was just sharing with you. I'm going to share my screen again in just a moment. Here we go. Make sure the audio is on. All right.
The magic of Microsoft 365 Copilot gets even better with AI-driven agents that connect to your organization's databases and automate your business processes, making your workday a breeze. Creating an agent is done directly in Copilot chat and just takes a few simple steps. Start by telling Copilot what you want the agent to do. Then, expand the agent's knowledge base by providing resources like websites, uploaded files, or organizational or third-party work data. Your new agent will inherit your existing organization's security settings, helping everything stay protected. Once your agent is ready, you can use it to troubleshoot with customers in real time, handle repetitive tasks, or even let it operate independently. The possibilities are endless. Plus, you can access your agents from any device, whether it's a PC, mobile phone, or tablet. Empower your team and transform the way you work with agents in Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat today.
All right. So hopefully that was useful and added some better context for what I was just sharing. All right. So all of that possible with a Microsoft 365 Copilot subscription. And so, what about the security piece? Just barely touched on a smidgen of the Copilot subscription itself, solely for the purpose of making sure that you got a foundation and context for the data and identities piece. ChatGPT, very popular, well known. It's AI wrapped in a ChatGPT wrapping paper, right? You have others. I mentioned Gemini before, which is AI wrapped in Google paper, and on the list goes. But the commonality is AI. Microsoft 365 Copilot is AI in Microsoft wrapping paper, but it's so much more than that. So therefore, how do you decide? How do you determine which is the best option, which is the best solution for your business? I would suggest even go a little further as to recommend that you make your selection based on the trustworthiness of that tool, meaning you've got a person or you've got a group of people who are responsible for making sure that all of your files and information and everything else relative to your business stays safe, secure, and protected. So you've got a Microsoft security boundary, right? You've got policies in place and permissions and even some restrictions to make sure everything stays locked down, only accessible to certain people in your own organization and accessible to nobody from outside of your organization. So you put a lot of time and effort into that. But then along comes something like shadow AI, which has always been around, but it's even more of a concern, potential problem now in this era of AI. If you have employees or coworkers using AI tools that haven't been approved by IT, they are engaging in shadow AI. So if you have folks that are using ChatGPT, but the business hasn't said it's okay to use ChatGPT, that is an example of working with shadow AI. So these are things that you have to look at as a business. These are things that you ought not to dismiss as trivial. Because once again, if people are being paid to protect your stuff, so everything is nicely fenced in, does it make sense to open a space in that fence, basically put in a gate that allows traffic to go back and forth? Does that make sense now? so you can benefit from AI outside of your business. So you're going from a private, controlled environment and saying to staff, yes, it's okay to use this public, uncontrolled environment. Those are questions that you have to ask and questions that you need to answer. And so I just wanted to put this up here. It's very important and very necessary to beware of shadow AI. It can bring a business down, and nobody wants that. Once again, balance it off this way, or consider it this way. You care about making sure your stuff stays private. Make sure that as you integrate AI, that you retain control of keeping your stuff private. All right, hopefully I'm not serving as too much of a distraction here. These are the things or examples of things that you want to retain control over. You want to make sure stay private. If you are paying for a subscription with a third-party tool, I know, for example, that Google offers ChatGPT offers a subscription, so you can upgrade to ChatGPT Pro, and as a part of that, they make sure that your data stays protected and all of that good stuff. And I think you'll find that with many of the other AI tools as well. But then it still poses the question, if you've made the investment to protect your stuff yourself, why do you want to give that responsibility to another provider? So now you're working between two services, essentially. If you are happy with and you are satisfied that you've got some robust protections in place, bring AI into that, and it will benefit from the security, the strength of your security parameters. Things to consider. Which AI tool are you willing to trust? Microsoft 365 Copilot, designed especially for Microsoft 365 environments to leverage what you already have in place to protect what's keeping your business running and allowing for your leadership to be able to sleep at night. So I just wanted to share that. And what tools are available that allow you to do that? There are tools that are built into your Microsoft 365 licenses. And just to give you some examples, if you look at the bottom of this slide here, available in, and I'm highlighting the three principal licenses that businesses should actually be looking at and prioritizing in this era of AI. There are many other Microsoft licenses that are available. If you have something like Business Basic, if you have a Business Standard, maybe you're using Exchange Online only. You don't have all of the other collaboration tools. These three, Business Premium, E3, and E5, are absolutely the primary licenses that you want to have or gravitate over to maximize the availability of the security features offered by Microsoft. So for number one, you can manage overprivileged and risky users with Microsoft Entra ID, which is designed for identity management and access management, available in the three licenses or the subscriptions that you see below. And likewise, you can see what the other three have to offer. But what's common among all of these is they're available in Business Premium, E3, and E5. And since I've mentioned them a couple of times now, the difference between a Business Premium, E3, and E5, there are a few differences, but primarily, if you are a business of fewer than 300 users, maybe you only have 50 users, Business Premium is designed for businesses of fewer than 300 users. And it includes many of the security features that you'll find in an E3 or an E5. The E3 and E5, or A3, A5, don't have a cap. So if you have 301 users, 500 users, 1,000, it's for an unlimited number of users. So if you only have 10 users in your organization, or you only have 100 users in your organization, then sure, you can get an E3 or E5, but from a cost perspective, the recommendation, the hero SKU in that case, is Microsoft 365 Business Premium. So I just thought I would share that in case you weren't previously aware. And the last two that I'll share with you here, threat and vulnerability management, that is available through Microsoft Defender for Business, which exists if you have a Microsoft 365 Business Premium license. Email and app security, another feature that's available through Defender for Office 365, and you can get that in the licenses that you see below. So there are security benefits and features available that already exist today to help you protect your files and documents and identities. And when you get something like Microsoft 365 Copilot and add that to your Microsoft environment, it will also be governed by these same tools and the protections that are offered. And if I boil it down even further, I would also say this. The permissions you have in place for me as a user and the restrictions that you have in place for me as a user are the same permissions and restrictions that are going to apply to my use of Microsoft 365 Copilot. When I get a Copilot subscription, it's not going to circumvent whatever is already in place for me as a user. It's not going to overwrite those policies or permission. It's not going to add, nothing like that. It's going to slip right in there and be governed the same way everything else has been governed within your Microsoft environment. That is why I can say to you that if you want Copilot to have access and visibility to certain files and documents, you can make that happen because you're going to make that available to the user. If you want Copilot to be restricted and not be able to see certain files and documents, you can do that because you're going to apply those restrictions to the user. Whatever the user can see and access, Copilot will see and access. Whatever the user is not allowed to see and access, Copilot also will not be allowed to see and access that info. So get an assessment done. Maybe that's the best place that you could start to work with C&W and work towards getting a risk and compliance assessment done. Even if you've been proactive within your organization to make sure that the policies and permissions are always up to date, right? As people move within your business, maybe someone has changed the role, maybe someone has left the company, someone has joined the company, and you're proactive in making sure that people only have access to what is necessary for them to perform their job and responsibilities. Fantastic. I still would recommend that you get an assessment done because in this era of AI, as you would probably appreciate, AI lives off of and it feeds off of data. You want to make sure that all of the holes are plugged and that your security boundary is as secure as possible. A risk and compliance assessment will allow you to do that. A co-pilot assessment, if you will. And once you have everything established and everything is thoroughly locked down, you can expect Copilot to work for you similar to this.
Microsoft 365 Copilot works with the data security controls you have in place for file access, labeling, classification, and data loss prevention. Mario Rogers works for Violet Martinez, and both are on the same team at Contoso. Mario and Violet are also members in the same group working on Project Falcon. Now we'll start with Violet, who's been working with the procurement and contract management teams to sell their partner ReliCloud 1,500 Mark 8 quadcopters. And you can see the file is labeled highly confidential with restricted access, and it describes all the terms in the purchase agreement. Because Violet has access to the file, she's able to search for and find it in SharePoint and Microsoft365.com. And of course, Violet can also navigate to the file's location in the Agreements folder of the project site to find the purchase agreement. So now let's look at Mario's experience. Even though he's on the same team and working on Project Falcon with Violet, if Mario tries to search for the Contoso purchase agreement, he won't find it. And there are a few purchasing documents that he does find without sensitive information, but not the one that Violet's working on. And if Mario knows the location of the purchase agreement and tries to navigate to it directly, it just appears as an empty folder to him. And when Mario launches Word on the web and creates a blank document, then prompts Microsoft 365 Copilot to summarize the Contoso purchase agreement as a reference file, because Microsoft 365 Copilot respects the file permissions of its user, Copilot also cannot access the purchase agreement. Now, if we switch back to Violet's screen, because she has permission to access the purchase agreement, she can use Microsoft 365 Copilot to summarize the file. And after a moment, you'll see it created a summary of the purchase agreement, and Violet decides to keep it. Then data security controls for Microsoft Purview discover sensitive information found in the Microsoft 365 Copilot generated content. The document is automatically labeled as highly confidential, and policies are enforced to restrict access to the document.
All right, and with the few minutes that we have left, I'll wrap things up there at that point. But yeah, I would certainly recommend that your next step should be to follow up with your C&W representative and to begin the process, if not already, of moving towards something like Microsoft 365 Copilot, especially if retaining and maintaining the security of your business is important. Remember, you're already working within a private, protected, and controlled environment. You have a person or people who take care of that. Add AI into that mix so you can retain that control and still benefit from the power of AI versus working with external AI tools where you don't have control over what happens to the data after you're finished working with that AI tool. Tara, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. That was very insightful. I hope everyone was able to gain a little bit about the security aspects of Copilot through that session. Well, we've completed our 3-part series, and I want to thank you all for joining us. And please keep an eye out. We will have other events coming up, and we'd love for you to join as well. If we are interested in learning a little bit more about Copilot, or as Andrew had implied, the network assessment, you can always reach out to C&W Technologies via phone 772-287-5215, or you can email us directly at ai@cwnow.com. I had also alluded to the surveys and how important they are for us to continue to do these webinar series and sessions. And there will be another survey that will be coming out along with the session recording from today's session. So I do encourage you, if we could please fill that out and give us your feedback, that would be greatly appreciated. We also have the opportunity for those who are interested in doing some kind of a training, but more into your business about Copilot, and that would be separate, but we can definitely give you more information on that if you are interested. So thank you all for attending, and without that further ado, we have 1 minute to spare. I think we made it in time. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thank you again for joining us.